In the tumultuous years leading up to World War II, one man's ambitions and ideologies would set the stage for a devastating conflict that would change the course of history. This is the story of why Adolf Hitler started World War II. Adolf Hitler, the charismatic leader of Nazi Germany, had a vision for his country that went far beyond its borders. Hitler's motives for starting the war were rooted in a complex web of factors. One of the key factors was the Treaty of Versailles. Signed in 1919, this treaty imposed severe restrictions on Germany after its defeat in World War I. Hitler saw the treaty as a humiliation for Germany and a hindrance to its greatness. The Treaty of Versailles marked the end of World War I and had a profound impact on Germany. It was negotiated primarily by the United States, Britain, and France, without the participation of the defeated Central Powers. The treaty aimed to establish peace and hold Germany accountable for the war. One of the most controversial aspects of the Treaty of Versailles was the War Guilt Clause, which placed the blame for the war solely on Germany. This clause had significant political and psychological consequences for Germany, as it was seen as a national humiliation and a burden of guilt. The treaty imposed heavy financial reparations on Germany, requiring the country to make substantial payments to the victorious Allies. These reparations, along with territorial losses, had a severe economic impact on Germany and contributed to its post-war instability. Germany's European territory was reduced by about 10%, and it lost overseas possessions. It also faced significant military restrictions, including the demilitarization and occupation of the Rhineland. The treaty aimed to weaken Germany's military capabilities and prevent it from posing a future threat. The German army was limited to 100,000 soldiers, and the navy was limited to 15,000 sailors. The Treaty of Versailles was viewed as a dictated peace by many Germans. They felt that they were not invited to negotiate at the Paris Peace Conference and that the terms were imposed upon them. This perception deepened the sense of injustice and fueled nationalist sentiments. Germany ended up not paying anywhere near what the treaty said Germany should pay, Nieberg says, adding that hardly anyone had expected Germany to be able to pay the entire amount. And despite the loss of German territory, there were plenty of people who understood as early as 1919 that the map actually gave Germany some advantages, Nieberg points out. It put small states on Germany's borders, in Eastern and Central Europe. It eliminated Russia as a direct enemy of Germany, at least in the 1920s, and it removed Russia as an ally of France. So while the treaty looked really harsh to some people, it actually opened up opportunities for others. Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party capitalized on the discontent and resentment among the German population, promising to overturn the perceived injustices of the treaty. The Treaty of Versailles established the League of Nations, an international organization intended to promote peace and prevent future conflicts. However, the United States, despite President Woodrow Wilson's efforts, did not ratify the treaty and did not join the League of Nations. The treaty's harsh terms and the economic hardships it imposed on Germany created a sense of bitterness and resentment among the German population. This environment helped foster the rise of extremist ideologies, such as fascism and the Nazi Party, which ultimately led to the outbreak of World War II. It is important to note that the Treaty of Versailles was not the sole cause of World War II, but it played a significant role in shaping the political and economic conditions that allowed for the rise of Adolf Hitler and the subsequent aggression of Nazi Germany. The Weimar Republic was Germany's government from 1919 to 1933, the period after World War I until the rise of Nazi Germany. It was named after the town of Weimar where Germany's new government was formed by a national assembly after Kaiser Wilhelm II abdicated. From its uncertain beginnings to a brief season of success and then a devastating depression, the Weimar Republic experienced enough chaos to position Germany for the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. Germany didn't fare well in the years following World War I, as it was thrown into troubling economic and social disorder. After a series of mutinies by German sailors and soldiers, Kaiser Wilhelm II lost the support of his military in the German people, and he was forced to abdicate on November 9, 1918. The following day, a provisional government was announced made up of members of the Social Democratic Party, SDP, and the Independent Social Democratic Party of Germany, USDP, shifting power from the military. In December 1918, elections were held for a National Assembly tasked with creating a new parliamentary constitution. On February 6, 1919, the National Assembly met in the town of Weimar and formed the Weimar Coalition. They also elected SDP leader Friedrich Ebert as president of the Weimar Republic. On June 28, the Treaty of Versailles was signed. Despite its new constitution, the Weimar Republic faced one of Germany's greatest economic challenges, hyperinflation. Thanks to the Treaty of Versailles, Germany's ability to produce revenue-generating coal and iron ore decreased. As war debts and reparations drained its coffers, the German government was unable to pay its debts. Some of the former World War I allies didn't buy Germany's claim that it couldn't afford to pay. In a blatant League of Nations breach, French and Belgian troops occupied Germany's main industrial area, the Ruhr, determined to get their reparation payments. The Weimar government ordered German workers to passively resist the occupation and go on strike, shutting down the coal mines and iron factories. As a result, Germany's economy quickly tanked. In response, the Weimar government simply printed more money. The effort backfired, however, and further devalued the German mark, and inflation increased at an astounding level. The cost of living rose rapidly and many people lost everything they had. Germany elected Gustav Stresemann as their new chancellor in 1923. He ordered Ruhr workers back to the factories and replaced the mark with a new currency, the American-backed Reichsmark. In late 1923, the League of Nations asked U.S. banker and director of the budget, Charles Dawes, to help tackle Germany's reparations and hyperinflation issues. He submitted the Dawes Plan, which outlined a plan for Germany to pay more reasonable reparations on a sliding scale. Dawes was later awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts. The Dawes Plan and Stresemann's leadership helped stabilize the Weimar Republic and energize its economy. In addition, Germany repaired relations with France and Belgium and was finally allowed into the League of Nations, which opened the door for international trade. In general, life improved in the Weimar Republic. Much of the Weimar Republic's recovery was due to a steady flow of American dollars into its economy. But unbeknownst to Germany, America had positioned itself for an economic disaster of its own as it faced growing unemployment, low wages, declining stock values and massive, unliquidated bank loans. On October 29, 1929, the U.S. stock market crashed, sending America into a devastating economic meltdown and ushering in the Great Depression. The stock market crash had a global ripple effect. It was especially devastating for the newly recovered Weimar Republic. As the flow of American money dried up, Germany could no longer meet their financial responsibilities. Businesses failed, unemployment rates rose and Germany faced another devastating economic crisis. During hyperinflation, the German middle class bore the brunt of the economic chaos. When another financial crisis hit, they grew weary and distrustful of their government leaders. Searching for new leadership and fearing a communist takeover, many people turned to extremist parties such as the Nazi Party led by Adolf Hitler, despite his unpopular and failed attempt to start a national revolution in 1923. By 1932, the Nazi Party became the largest political party in parliament. After a brief struggle for power, Hitler was named chancellor in January 1933. Within weeks, he invoked Article 48 of the Weimar Constitution to quash many civil rights and suppress members of the Communist Party. In March 1933, Hitler introduced the Enabling Act to allow him to pass laws without the approval of Germany's parliament or president. To make sure the Enabling Act was passed, Hitler forcibly prevented communist parliament members from voting. Once it became law, the Weimar Republic ended, and Hitler was free to establish his dictatorship without any checks and balances. To begin, let's define what Lebensraum means. Lebensraum is a German term that translates to living space in English. It was a concept developed by Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party in the 1920s and 1930s. The idea behind Lebensraum was to acquire additional territory for the German people, which would provide them with the necessary resources and space to thrive. In pursuit of his expansionist goals, Hitler annexed Austria and Czechoslovakia in 1938–1939 with little resistance. However, his invasion of Poland on September 1, 1939, marked a turning point. Poland had been guaranteed military support from France and Britain, and their declarations of war on Germany triggered the European phase of World War II. The consequences of Hitler's actions were devastating. The war resulted in the deaths of millions of people, the destruction of cities, and the perpetration of genocide. The Nazis' beliefs about race and space had a profound influence on Germany's violent aggression toward other nations, groups, and individuals in the first years of World War II. Central to their ideology was the notion of racial superiority, particularly the Aryan race, and the pursuit of Lebensraum. The Nazis believed in the superiority of the Aryan race, viewing it as a master race destined to rule over others. They sought to create an empire that would be racially pure and dominated by Aryans. This ideology fueled their aggression and led to the persecution, oppression, and ultimately, the extermination of various groups. One group that suffered immensely due to Nazi aggression were the Jews. The Nazis' anti-Semitic beliefs led to the implementation of the final solution, a systematic plan to annihilate European Jews. Approximately 6 million Jews, along with millions of others deemed racially inferior or socially undesirable, were subjected to genocide in concentration camps and extermination centers. Other groups that were persecuted and suffered under Nazi aggression included Romani people, people with disabilities, homosexuals, political dissidents, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Slavic peoples. These groups faced discrimination, forced labor, sterilization, medical experimentation, and often death. In terms of benefiting from Nazi aggression, the German leadership and the Nazi Party stood to gain politically, economically, and territorially. Hitler aimed to expand German territory, reclaiming lost lands and creating an empire under German control. The acquisition of resources, such as oil, minerals, and agricultural land, was also a driving force behind their expansionist policies. Additionally, industries and corporations associated with the Nazi regime benefited economically from the war, as they profited from forced labor and the plundering of resources from occupied territories. However, it is important to note that not all Germans benefited from Nazi aggression. Many German soldiers and civilians lost their lives in the war, and the German population also suffered the consequences of the conflict, including bombings, shortages, and displacement. In summary, the Nazis' beliefs about race and space fueled their aggressive actions and policies during the early years of World War II. This aggression resulted in the suffering and persecution of millions of individuals, particularly Jews and other targeted groups. While the Nazi leadership and certain sectors of the German economy benefited from this aggression, the wider German population also experienced the devastating consequences of war.